Oh, got to double check the microphone settings. Looks like we're good. Okay. Good morning, Patriots. See Fish and Golf with that first blood. Be controversial. Still coming back for more. Good to see you. So, y'all, this really is the only news. California is still on fire. And I wanted to come back and talk about it a little bit because we've been seeing all this commentary about, Donald Trump, evil Donald Trump is trying to politicize this disaster. Democrats don't ever do that. Oh. Helene and Milton were less than 6 months ago. Right? That just happened. And you're hearing all the, you've got the debunk, the Donald Trump supporters were out there spreading misinformation about federal emergency management agency responses. Oh, really? Were we? Is that what happened? Because, y'all, I ran a chainsaw to clear roads. That's something that happens out here in the country. The government doesn't show up to help people, and so people help themselves. And by help themselves, I mean we get our big asses out with our big ass chainsaws and move big ass trees off the road. Right? It's one of the things. It's actually one of the things I love about being out here is people don't look at a problem and wait for the government to fix it. They just fix it because you can't wait for the government to fix it. They won't. So it's here we are almost a week out, and the facts are these: California is still on fire. And we're hearing a lot of stuff about how the DEI situation has affected that. And of course, you've got the climate alarmists out there screaming, "Oh, this is proof that climate change is a thing." And blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're going to look at Twitter a little bit this morning, but first I'm going to pull up the live update. This is from about just a couple hours ago. It says live updates, the latest on the deadly Los Angeles wildfires. This is from CNN. But they're saying that it looks like the deadly wind conditions may return. Firefighters are in a critical stage of their almost week-long battle against deadly Los Angeles blazes. Crews report progress, but officials say the fire threat will remain very high as dangerous winds return this week. So language like this is one of the things that Democrats get wrong, that the lefties get wrong on, that says that the threat of fire will remain very high. Y'all. Okay. We talked about this with the whole Obamacare thing, right? And this is very relevant, very pertinent here for the same reasons. And honestly, I want to put on my tinfoil hat a little bit, but let me start with the Obamacare thing. Before the Affordable Care Act was put into place, health insurance could be purchased privately at a reasonable rate. It existed. And, of course, we heard all the noise about, pre-existing conditions. Okay. Here's the example. Here's the analogy that we used to use to discuss this problem. Before the pre-existing conditions mandated through the Affordable Care Act destroyed the United States healthcare industry, right? You had a couple of problems there, one of which was conflating health insurance with the healthcare industry. Those are two very different things. The health insurance industry and the healthcare industry are two very different things. Just like the car insurance industry and the car industry, the automotive industry, are two very different things, right? Geico sells car insurance. They do not sell cars. Okay, that's a little bit. There's a little bit of a tweak in there because companies like Geico do make deals with companies like, damn it, what? Danny, you're in the chat. Who's that big ass Copart with companies like Copart and Reclaim and salvage and resell used destroyed vehicles that have been refurbished. Blah, 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 blah. But that's tangential. Car insurance companies do not manufacture cars, just like the health insurance business does not provide health care. right? And the fire insurance business, at least in theory, is not supposed to be in the business of starting fires. So you go back to the Affordable Care Act, the insurance situation there. First, you have to understand what insurance is, right? We go all the way back to Lloyd's of London, the underwriter, and the idea that you've got all these ships carrying, huge wealth of cargo on a ship. And if one of those ships goes down, then that shipper could be ruined. But if only 2 in 100 ships ever go down and 100 shippers get together and say, okay, guys, we're all going to pool our money together so that if disaster strikes one of us, then all together we can help that one and we can keep business going correctly. And there was a reasonable and selfish motivation there because, believe it or not, one shipper would do business with another shipper, merchant vessels, right? I'm selling bananas to Scotland, right? Maybe I'm just toting them up. I'm just toting them up and crossing a little bit of puddle, but somebody else is bringing them all the way across from the other side of the world. I need that guy to keep bringing them, and that guy needs me to keep buying them and selling them. So it's absolutely in our interest individually to put up a little nut and make sure that everybody's got a little safety net. But that's not a government activity. That's private citizens entering into a voluntary agreement to help to guarantee one another against predictable, and that's an important factor, predictable but not yet incurred risk. So when you're talking about a situation like this with the Eaton and Palisades fires, and there's a fifth fire that just broke out, and I forget the name of that community, but basically Los Angeles is on fire. Still, a week later. Now, all that, when they were first arguing about the ACA, one of the things that Cameron and I talked about and pointed out on the show especially was that the thing that the ACA is not a thing which can also be called insurance, right? And words matter. Language matters. The definition of terms matters. You go back to the beginning of 2021, and Cameron and I did a show where we asked the question, right? And we're not super anti-vaxxers or anything like that, but we were trying to have a conversation about the science around the vaccine and ask the question, okay, it's the new COVID vaccine is an mRNA vaccine. That is technically and distinctly discrete from what a vaccine, a live viral culture is by definition. The polio vaccine did good stuff, yes, and it was not a gene therapy. So can we even call this new thing a vaccine? That's actually an intelligent and intellectually important distinction. Is it a vaccine? That show got ripped off the air because we were asking questions about the vaccine. And it wasn't even, does this work? It was, is it the same kind of a thing? Well, once you introduce the pre-existing conditions to the insurance business, right? Now that we're talking about California being on fire, listen, as a guy who has been state licensed in all lines of insurance and run a brokerage where I wrote insurance policies for private citizens, health insurance, businesses, errors and omissions for lawyers and real estate agents. I did commercial lines, I did property lines, I did life and health lines. I did literally every kind of insurance you can do, especially fire insurance policies. I'm telling you, I will not write an insurance policy for you to insure your house against fire if the house is currently on fire. In fact, I won't write the policy for you if the house is no longer on fire. Because what insurance does, what insurance is it is a guarantee against a perceived risk. Now, if you want to buy some insurance that guarantees that you'll be paid an amount of money in the event that you incur damages from a risk that is beyond impossible, right? Like if you come to me right now and ask me to quote you on a $5 billion insurance policy to insure you against the risk that you'll be strangled in your sleep by the flying spaghetti monster, I'll write that policy for you, and I'll probably give you a good rate, like $50 a month, because that's a safe bet. But if you think you're going to pay me $2,000 a year for a fire insurance policy with total replacement coverage on a house that's already burned down, then no, I'm not going to let you write me a check for $2,000 that contractually obligates me at that moment to spend $500,000 on rebuilding your house. It's not going to happen. That's why all the insurance companies pulled out of California within the last 3-4 months. Now, okay, I should be careful. I'm talking about careful with language. I should be more careful with my language. The insurance companies generally did not pull out of California totally. There is, in fact, a thing that happens where an insurance company leaves a state. And I've even seen that happen in Georgia with some elder care insurance companies that decided that the risk category, they weren't selling enough policies to balance the risk category against the actuary tables. But so companies like State Farm and State Farm, Allstate, et cetera, they are still insuring property in California, but they're insuring things. They're writing car insurance. It's been over a year since most of the big insurance companies have said we will not accept any new applications for homeowners insurance in the state of California. And just in the last 3-4 months, they've canceled tens of thousands of existing homeowners insurance policies. And this is a multi-layered thing. The state of California imposed a limit on how much the insurance companies could raise rates year over year. And so the insurance companies had to ask permission of the state government to raise rates more than X. And I think the number was 7%. And of course, they've raised the rates to the maximum that they were legally allowed every year. And of course they have. And then last year, toward the end of last year, we covered this on the show Thursday a bit. Toward the end of last year, California, there was an announcement by the California government, hey, we'll let you raise them up to 40% this year. And y'all, it's too little too late. Right? You might as well be writing the insurance policy on the house that's already on fire. Right? Your health insurance policies, right? I'd love to see some mention in the chat, or if you're catching this on the replay, leave it in the comments. How many of you have a $6,500 deductible on your health insurance currently? Because as somebody who's written policies, I'm here to tell you that before the Affordable Care Act came into play, before the Affordable Care Act broke everything, a $6,500 deductible was unheard of. 15 years ago, if you were broke and trying to get health insurance because you were doing the responsible thing, but you couldn't afford to get a good plan, so you were buying the cheapest garbage with the highest deductible, you were looking at a $3,500 deductible, maybe $4,000 on the outside. You'd have been hard pressed to find a deductible higher than $4,000, especially on an individual policy. You'd be more likely your cheapo would be a $2,500 deductible, right? Until you get old or you have the pre-existing conditions. And then, of course, that was the solution to the pre-existing conditions previously, is higher deductible or your conditions excluded for a period. Okay, cool. Olson says, thanks, Obama and Pelosi, right? You have to pass it. Cameron says, I remember when my deductible was $1,500 and I thought that was high. And Cameron, when your deductible was $1,500, that was high. It wasn't unheard of, but that was a high deductible, right? That was definitely, it wouldn't have been your first choice if you could afford it. Aaron says it's cheaper to pay cash. It's cheaper to pay cash when you can pay cash. But there are a lot of places now that they just won't let you pay cash anymore in the health insurance business. So I want to bring this back around to the fire insurance business. And this is something that, and honestly, I expect that Cameron and I will end up talking about this on the show at some point, maybe even spend a little time on it tomorrow. But one of the things that concerns that hang on, let me say this correctly. Let me make sure I get this out correctly. Okay. So one of the things that I expect to see is a lot of bashing and demonizing of the insurance companies. And don't mistake what I'm about to say as a full-throated defense. Like I'm not about to sit here and tell you that insurance companies are, the paladins of industry, the great moral exemplar, right? No, they're a business. They're in the business of making money, right? But you're going to hear a bunch of people talk about these evil insurance companies, especially in the next several weeks after California finally gets its shit together and puts these fires out. You're going to hear, oh, these evil insurance companies, look at all these poor rich people who are suffering. Look at all the landlords where the poor people were renting. And they're getting totally screwed because these insurance companies pulled out. Excuse me. Don't fall into the trap of them demonizing the insurance companies, because the fact of the matter is, this is a lot like the real estate market crash back in 2008. They're going to tell you, oh, the evil banks are taking advantage of people, et cetera, et cetera. No, that's not what's happening here. That's not what happened then. What's happening here is the California government did such an awful job of forest management, water management, fire resource management, that the writing was on the wall, right? Insurance companies have these things called actuaries. An actuary does the math. The actuary looks at it and says, okay, you have this chance that the damage will occur. You have this chance that an additional external mitigating factor will make the damage worse. You have this chance that the damage will be unrecoverable. And then let's look at the other side of the risk category table, and we say, okay, you've taken this measure to prevent the risk from happening. Okay, so we can lower your rates a little bit there, right? I'm sure a lot of you have seen that your car insurance companies now will let you get a smartphone app that you run while you're driving, and it keeps track of your speed, keeps track of how fast you slam on the brakes coming to a stop at a red light. And if you're a good driver, then they'll offer you a little discount on your insurance, stuff like that. Okay. So when the actuaries do their numbers, y'all, the actuarial math is witchcraft, right? They do it with pie charts, abacuses, and auger's guts. Right? An actuary sits down with a slide rule, a risk table, and a sacrificial dagger where they tear open a panda bear and dig through its guts to figure out what the likelihood is your house is going to catch on fire if they pay for it. right? So when the actuaries say you can't make money at this business, then the business doesn't just make the reasonably responsible choice not to do the business that can't offer profit. They have a fiduciary obligation, a federal law enforceable fiduciary obligation to their shareholders to make business decisions that have a reasonable expectation of generating profit and growing the business and growing the shareholders' investment. If these companies had not canceled the insurance policies, there's a good chance that the CEOs and the C-suite generally, the CEOs, CFOs, COOs, etc., that they could be legally liable to the shareholders for any losses, revenue losses incurred as a result. So when the money is the question and the answer comes from asking about the actuary tables and the actuary says this is a bad risk, then you stop doing that. You stop doing that business, right? If you're 99 years old, I'm not going to write you a whole life insurance policy with a $5 million payout for $100 a year. Not going to happen, right? I mean, I might write you that policy, but if you want to get $5 million out of a life insurance policy that I'm writing for you at 99, well, then I'm going to have to charge you $6 million because there has to be a profit margin in the product. Otherwise, it's not a viable business interest, right? The way insurance companies make their money is it's sort of a gamble for you. You're saying, okay, there is a chance that a once in a lifetime hurricane reaches the tiniest little town in Georgia and drops that big ass tree on top of my house. And I don't want to have to pay for that out of pocket. So I'm going to buy a homeowner's insurance policy. Now that chance is low, but just like the chance of being murdered in your sleep by a rampaging cow, it's never zero. Now, the spaghetti monster choking you out in the middle of the day, zero chance. I think you're good. So, Liberty Girl, that I don't know. You know what? I'm sorry I even stopped to read the comment. I don't want to get off. I don't want to get off on that particular tangent. Let me get back on track there. So like I was saying, the insurance companies, they're doing business. They're doing the right thing. Cameron, that's a great point. Cameron points out, just like your homeowner's insurance can say, cut those trees down or we will cancel your policy. Absolutely. Right. I think I've talked a little bit about the chicken coop that I have on my property. It's, I should take a picture of it to show you guys sometime because it's funny. It's literally the guy that had the house before, he had 2 trampolines. And now one trampoline is upside down with the legs sticking up. The other trampoline is mounted to the top of that. And then he wrapped the thing in chicken wire and put a hutch on the back of it to make a chicken coop, right? And I mean, I even asked him about it because I thought it was funny. And he said, "Oh yeah." So what had happened was somebody gave me the trampolines, and we had them in the yard for like a week or so. And my insurance guy came by and knocked on the door, and he said, those need to be gone before I come back tomorrow morning, or I'm going to have to cancel your policy." And so he turned them into a chicken coop. And when the insurance guy came back by the next day, it's like, "Yeah, that'll work. Those are clearly no longer trampolines." Good stuff, right? So, the live trees are full of moisture. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Cameron, for answering Liberty's question. So when they start demonizing the insurance companies in a couple of weeks, it's like I said, it's the same thing as what happened in 2008. The insurance companies are responding to the business environment that was created by government abuse and neglect. Right? You can go back and look at the housing market crash of 2008, and toxic asset relief programs, and they bundled these high risk mortgages. Yeah, they had to do something because the banks were forced by the government at gunpoint to write mortgages for people that could not afford to buy a house. They were forced to write mortgages for people, right? You want to buy a $250,000 house, you make $30,000 a year, and I'm required to write a mortgage that you're going to pay off in 30 years. The government's making me do that. And with no down payment. That math doesn't math. I mean, even if at the time we had been enjoying Trump era level interest rates, that math doesn't math. Right? Sit down with an amortization chart and check it out. It doesn't work. And that's before you even consider the extraordinary rate at which those homes were foreclosed on. Right? So the banks, you can poo-poo what they did with bundling toxic assets and everything they did to try and recover from that. But the fact of the matter is, they were forced into a bad position where they had to make a choice. And their choices were fail, collapse, at the risk of the CEO, CFO, and the whole C-suite being sued for violating their fiduciary obligations, or figure something out. And that's where we are with the insurance companies right now. They have been put in a position where they either have to choose to be bankrupted by a wildfire that was all but guaranteed to happen. Right? A week and a half ago, we could have said that this was all but guaranteed to happen. In fact, there was a firefighter that went on Joe Rogan's show a year ago, and he basically described this is what's going to happen. Eventually, there's going to be a perfect storm where the wildfire happens. It's bad because we haven't taken care of business, and it just happens to coincide with high winds. And that's going to be a catastrophe that none of us can deal with. So I've been seeing a bunch of stuff on Twitter. Let me share some of this stuff with you. Let me see where to start. Okay. I'm going to start with Victor Shee, this shitbag, and we'll knock this one out real quick. He says, I need everyone to hear me on this. A mayor has no control over hurricane level wind gusts. 100 fire trucks would not have stopped a fire in 100 plus mile per hour winds. Scientists and firefighters have said the same. End of discussion. Now is the time we focus on rebuilding. Right? And I replied to him a little while ago. I said, I'm glad you mentioned rebuilding. Many of these people have recently lost their homeowners insurance because the risk category became untenable. When the actual table tells the insurance companies that a risk category is so unsafe that there can be no profit in it, then you should consider another activity. No, they could not change the winds. But let's not pretend like we haven't seen this coming for a long time, and precautions were not only not taken, but expressly hampered by the policy decisions of California's elected officials. Granddad says he and Ellie are watching from in front of the fireplace. Hi, Ellie. I miss you, baby girl. I'm leaving in 2 hours to go pick mommy up at the airport. And then I want to show you this real quick. we've talked about this in the past, the DEI stuff.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that.
Okay, let me ask you that question. So you want to see somebody who broad sweeping generalization. You personally want to see somebody who looks like you responding to your fire emergency or your situation. Let me ask you a question, audience. I know a lot of you in the audience, and I don't mean to be cruel, but some of you guys are old. Is that what you want to see? You want to see a woman in her 60s come shuffling up the driveway when your house is on fire and you're trapped inside? Is that what you want to see? You probably don't care what color they are. And even if you do, would you rather see Tommy Boy or Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime coming to break down your door? Right? Oh, maybe you prefer a black firefighter. Okay. Would you rather see Whoopi Goldberg coming up your driveway with a fire axe or Michael Clark Duncan? Right? That you want to see somebody who looks like you. Oh yeah? What if you're a 400-pound diabetic that's lost both his legs to the disease and you're in a wheelchair when your house is burning down? Is that what you want to see? You want to see a big fat boy with no legs in a wheelchair rolling up your driveway to try and help you get out of the burning house? Negative. So even before we get into this clip, this bitch has lost her damn mind.
That person.
Now, and this is the assistant chief, deputy chief, LAFD assistant chief, right? So this is right there.
And a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough?
Somebody might understand their situation better. Right. Okay. So I'm a diabetic slipping into a diabetic coma in my living room. And the thing that I want is another fat ass diabetic and not, I don't know, a doctor. That's psychotic. These people are psychotic. And then,
to do this, or you couldn't carry my husband.
When I say psychotic,
you might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Oh, really? Okay, so the house caught on fire, burned into the ground, and the stairs collapse while you're going down them. Any of y'all ever been on a staircase when it collapsed? I've stepped on a bad staircase and gone through the fucking thing. That's not the one you want. And you know what? I didn't get myself in that position. Somebody else left that staircase in that condition and didn't warn anybody. That was a couple of years ago. I was shooting a house. I was shooting photography of a ragged, nasty house, and I went to go down the stairs to shoot pictures of the basement, and the stairs fell apart under me. That was not a good day. But okay, I'm in the basement because the stairs collapsed under me in a house that I don't own, and I'm trapped there, and the house catches on fire. That's my fault. I got myself in that situation. Right. So these are the people that are pushing back. I saw one earlier, and I commented on it. I wish I had marked it, pulled it up so I could show you that one. But the guy basically said, "Can we stop pretending like LA's on fire just because gay and black people have jobs?" Wow, way too hyperbolically miscategorize the actual problem. Let me see. Can I find? I probably can't find that one. That was a couple hours. It was a few hours ago. But I mean, these are the kind of commentary that are coming out of these sociopaths. So I want to dig into this one for a minute, and then we'll wrap up this episode this morning.
And with these fires still burning, we are facing important questions about how to mitigate and prevent disasters like this in the future. Fact is, leaders will need to confront a very complicated and challenging reality moving forward.
Okay, what is that complicated and challenging reality? Right? This is a funny little trick that these lefties like to do. That's Jen Psaki, right? Y'all remember Peppermint Patty, the lying sociopath? Oh, we're gonna have to confront a complicated and okay, like what? What's complicated? Where's the nuance? What are the forest floor management, water provision, not cutting your budget, hiring people based on their professional qualifications rather than their immutable characteristics? What are those complications, Jen? Because what she's just said is, I don't know shit, and you're not smart enough to hear it even if I did. But then she goes on.
But right now, that is not exactly what is happening. Instead, Donald Trump and his allies are injecting half-truths, misinformation, and flat-out lies in some cases in order to score a version of political points, I suppose. We saw something similar play out just this past October in the aftermath of Hurricanes Helene and Milton, when Trump repeatedly lied about FEMA spending disaster relief funds on migrants, which didn't happen. Also baselessly claiming that the Biden administration was...
Now, she says it didn't happen, but, that's right. Alejandro Mayorkas told us that that's exactly what happened. He said it explicitly. He called a press conference to say it.
Absent and incompetent in delivering aid despite what...
Stop right there. Back it up.
And then, of course, we have... let's not forget that we're talking about the same period of time in which we had this incident where we learned that FEMA was explicitly skipping houses. Now, this is the woman. I hope everybody's deeply surprised to see her face. This is the woman that was the team lead that got caught sending text messages explicitly telling FEMA aid workers to pass over, to walk, to skip any house that had a Trump sign in the yard.
Like here is the Trump campaign signage, but if someone is in another, like an urban community, and it's a different culture and someone feels uncomfortable, we can't go to that home. If you have loose dogs and someone on the team is comfortable with dogs and another person is not, we can't go to that home because of safety precautions.
So you feared the Trump houses. The people on FEMA were fearing the Trump houses like they were fearing people with vicious dogs in their backyard.
Okay, and that seems like an unreasonable comparison. Spoiler alert, it is. But I do want to remind you, just because this woman is... This is some classic Democrat shit. She got herself caught. She got herself in trouble. And now she's trying to drag somebody else under the bus with her. The wheels on the bus go thump, 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 right? But this is another sociopath and a liar.
Exactly. And that's based on the trends. You can ask FEMA for incident reports. They have those because they ask us to report out if there's an incident at home. And unfortunately, again, the passionate supporters for Trump, some of them were a little bit violent.
But all of them were.
The passionate supporters for Trump, some of them were a little bit violent. And you want me to believe that was a statistically significant portion? Bullshit. She's lying. So at the same time that we're hearing them tell us that, Donald Trump's evil and he's out there trying to politicize this disaster. In fact, we've explicitly got Gavin Newsom out there saying that Donald Trump's evil and he's trying to politicize this disaster. we did all just see Helene and Milton happen, right? We did all just see that the government said, we'll send you $750, right, to rebuild your houses. We saw that, right? So this idea that somehow Donald Trump trying to politicize the situation is unique or unheard of is absolutely asinine. And of course, add to that, Donald Trump once again was right. He's been talking about this, about the problem of California neglecting their readiness and preparedness for such a disaster. He's been talking about that for more than 10 years now. Right? That's a fact. And I mentioned this last Thursday when we talked about it. They made fun of him when he said you got to clean up the forest floor. And yes, that is what you need to do. So Aaron points out, yeah, there was some woman that walked up and tried to talk to Gavin Newsom. It was either yesterday or the day before, and he had his phone, up like we saw with Kamala. Kamala's walking around with a brand new iPhone, and she's got a cable hanging out of it with a brand new iPhone, trying to convince us that she's using a set of headphones that can't hear us. Like, yeah, that phone doesn't have a headphone jack on it, honey. Who you try to tell? So chick walks up to Gavin Newsom and he says, I'm on the phone with Joe Biden right now. Oh yeah, put it on hold. Well, I'm not on the phone with him right now. The call dropped. Oh, is that what happened? That's totally what happened. All right, guys. I need to go ahead and put a pin in it right there. Thanks for watching this morning. Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.